Oh, my God.
Who are these people?
Check it out.
So I'm just going to take a minute to introduce Cindy Stagoff. She's going to be Lenny's conversation partner, which sounds very serious.
It really does.
Be very serious up there. She is a writer and vice president of NewJerseyArts.net. We're so excited. It's the first time we've collaborated with them. We're really excited and hope we do it more. For over 25 years, she did legal, fundraising, public relations, and community outreach for nonprofits and mission-driven businesses. Locally, Cindy founded Montclair's Concert for Haiti. She co-founded MLK, say it.
MLK Day On. In our public schools in Montclair with
Exactly.
Secret Gabbler.
It's a day of service, day on instead of a day off. And she serves on the board of Outpost in the Burbs. So with that, take it away,
Janet. So I just want to thank Janet, the fabulous ED here at the library, and Ariel, wherever you are, wave, who runs wonderful programs here. Thank you for partnering with njarts.net. And thank you, Lenny Kaye, for coming all the way to Montclair to talk about...
Well, I love this town. I mean, it is the home of the Lonesome Prairie Dogs.
That's true. Raise your hand, Lonesome Prairie Dogs. Hello. So today he's going to talk about his riveting book, which I just happen to have a copy right here, and they're on sale afterwards. So Lenny is a man of many talents, co-founder of Patti Smith Group, a seasoned music journalist. He's a seasoned music journalist, and I absolutely love reading his reviews. He's a author and musician and producer. But after speaking with him a bunch and reading this book, I can think it's safe to say that he's an encyclopedia of rock. And he takes that passion and he takes that knowledge and he's poured it into this book. He takes us to 10 transformative moments in rock, and along the way shares the cultural and political significance of these scenes. And while we're on that tour, we meet influences to Lenny, musicians and people in the background. So I would think it's safe to say that it's a very personal account, sort of a form of a musical memoir.
Yeah, I'd say that's exactly how I hoped it would be, and it certainly has been. I have lived the lifespan of rock and roll, but I've also participated in it. I've been a fan of it. I'm an obsessive record collector. It's kind of my universe. As a matter of fact, why don't I just read a bit from the introduction? So
what a fabulously spontaneous idea. Let's do that.
Because I say it so much better here. Fourscore and no. I was born with rock and roll. One of my earliest memories is hearing Little Richard's Tutti Frutti over the radio in our Brooklyn apartment, rolling on the floor in uncontrollable laughter and joy in its infectious, unbridled release and madness. I grew up with rock and roll. The music marks each stage of my awareness, a life lived in parallel with its intimations of immortality. It has charged and challenged the way I perceive and understand the world about me, continuously renewing vows taken at the junction where the spark of a vibrating guitar string jumps the gap to a magnetic pickup and becomes electricity. I grow old with rock and roll, traversing its leap to faith over a lifetime spent in quest of Spinal Tap's mystical 11, turning it uppermost. The odds of being struck by lightning are 300,000 to 1. I think that's an understatement. I've been struck by lightning many a time, many a place. You can't be everywhere at once, but maybe next pilgrimage. There's always refraction, heard and misheard from afar. You making a loud noise in the night, a strobe of incandescent bolt. Count the seconds from flash to thunder. That's how long it lasts. And then the storm. lightning to be filled with light. Thank you.
So I have to say, that's an example of how poetically written your book is.
Well, thank you. You know, I believe as a musician, when you're a writer, you write with rhythm and melody.
Yep.
You know, how the sentence scans. When you're a guitar player, often your solo has a narrative arc. And I'm lucky enough to be able to access both halves of my brain. As a musician, I'm very instinctual. I don't read music. I have to figure out the theory of what I'm doing backwards. I can feel the music and breathe with it, and I believe with Patti, that's always been my secret. I'm not the most genius guitar player in the world, but I know how to feel the music as it moves through her, and I think that's been the secret of our improvisation and our long lifeline together.
And I think your work as a music journalist also reflects your sensitivity to musicians, because you see it from the musician's perspective. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started out writing, my way in which to approach a piece of music was to imagine myself in the band. What it's like to make that record, because, you know, when you hear a record and somebody does it, you think, oh, they figured that out, you know, this is what happened. But when you realize how music is constructed and made, and how accidental some of it is, and how of the moment it is, and how that great mistake will turn into something else, that's an interesting way to know that you're not in control of the artistic process as much as many rock critics, you know, would let you think. You're kind of feeling your way. So I felt like I was very sympathetic to how bands made music and what it was like to be somewhere between the bass player and the rhythm guitar player as the music came out of the speakers.
And this has been noted by many musicians that I've spoken to, that Lenny is truly supportive on the stage and off the stage. So thanks for that on their behalf.
You know, I love to go see people play. I really like the grassroots. I would rather go see my friends play in a local dive bar than go up to Madison Square Garden and see the huge cyclorama. I like the initial impulse of music. That to me is really, you know, and when I work on these kind of what I call transformative moments, I try to imagine that this is what it was like in these scenes. You know, I looked at the history of rock and roll and I thought, well, what are the times that changed the music, sometimes overnight? I mean, what happened when the Beatles arrived on this shore and kind of rendered somewhat obsolete an entire generation of musicians, or when Elvis came, or, you know, when grunge took hair metal off the map. Sometimes these things really happen quickly, but they've also spent a couple of years figuring out what they want to do, kind of coming together like cosmic dust.
So Lenny, you've taken us to 10 engrossing scenes in the book.
Right.
What makes a moment a scene? What qualities do you think it needs to possess?
I think it needs to be a bunch of people contributing all their energies, and not just the bands. Brian Eno has a very interesting concept. He calls it scenius, which is not the geniuses on stage, because that's how we usually look at them, but the whole ecology of the people there, how they dressed, what the time frame is, what they're reacting against, what they're hoping to become. All of these elements, you know, that person standing in the back nursing a beer, wondering who they might be, is as important as the person on stage, you know, banging on the guitar. And when those things come together, and they can't be scripted, you know, my favorite scene as a kid growing up, I had the poster on my wall at Rutgers, you know, the Fillmore, 1967 New Year's Eve, the Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Grateful Dead. I really wanted to be there so badly. And in August of that year, the summer of love, me and my buddy Larry got in a '56 Ford and drove across country high on various substances. Went swimming in the Great Salt Lake. That was the worst idea ever. You come out, you're just covered in salt. You can't float underneath it. It's, you know, sand flies. But San Francisco was really so inspirational, because you see all these bands coming out of nowhere, finding what the music they want to make and changing the nature of rock and roll, making it evolve. And I'm always into the evolution. I'm not one to say, ooh, things were better then. Yeah, well, that's why they're then. You know, I like to see what's happening in the future, or at least in the contemporary present.
So for those who say that rock and roll is dead, and for those who say the best is yet to come, what's your feeling about
I'd say both
the status
of
of
that.
rock
I mean,
and
I
roll?
don't think rock and roll is dead. You know, Chopin people are not making romantic piano music like they did in the 1850s, you know, so that's okay, you know, because it was explored totally, you know. Dixieland jazz, you're not going to be able to do anything different, but you can pick out elements. Bebop, you know, free jazz. I mean, all of these musics have understood themselves to a degree where they now become part of the tapestry of what you can draw on to make the music of the future. I mean, I'm not a part of the music of the future. But on the other hand, I can always find a song that I like, you know, done by somebody who's on the TikTok.
But I've heard you
You know.
say that we're past invention, and now we're involved with interpretation.
Excuse me?
I've heard you say that we're past invention with rock and roll, that now it's about interpretation.
And
What do you think
innovation. I
is-
mean, there'll
what do
be
you mean by
great
that?
rock artists, just like there'll be great blues players. But you're not going to hear a blues that's any different than any other blues. It's been figured out. And I think that's important, just like, you know, we all have a lifeline as human beings, and that's how the culture progresses. And I'm fine with it. And I can make my own music because I understand it, and you know, maybe there's a hook that I can move over to a song I'm writing, or a texture of an instrument. But you know, I think, especially if you're a fan of rock and roll, it'll never be dead. But there's 60-some years of it to process, and I still go to the local record fair, and somebody will pull out a 45 from a stack and say, man, listen to this unknown group, and you know, it's kind of great. So there's a lot you can do.
Right.
I mean, I just think music is so amazingly varied in all its genres and textures and lifeline, and to kind of follow the movement of pop music along is really, you know, kind of a blessing. I've been into the 1930s, you know, when I wrote my book on the crooners.
Which you just happen to have. And there will be a few copies on sale in the back later. So Lenny, can we go back and describe some of the scenes that you discussed in the book? Let's talk about the one that you were most central to. So it's the early 1970s, you're working at Bleecker Bob record store, you're a music journalist, and these outlier bands start collecting at a club called CBGB. You meet this woman named Patti Smith. Can you talk about the emergence of that scene and how that all happened?
Well, you know, it was nice to be able to participate in a scene instead of looking at it from afar. You know, I wasn't in Liverpool at the Cavern, and I didn't get to dance on American Bandstand. I would have been good, though. I know how to do the stroll.
We have no doubt.
Yeah, and I remember how great it was to come to San Francisco and see these bands just having their own personality, to taking the music to a place that I never expected. When I got back, and then of course there's the Detroit scene, which came between it, MC5, Stooges, which was incredibly influential to me, but I never got to go to the Grande Ballroom. But I remember that moment, probably it was around end of 1974, maybe, beginning of 75. I'm standing in front of CBGB, which at that point was a a rundown Bowery bar in the middle of kind of nowhere, you know, a kind of no man's land on the Bowery, and standing and thinking about this little cluster of bands that were starting to play there, the Ramones and Blondie and Television and Talking Heads and some group called the Patti Smith Group. And I started thinking, man, this has the same feel of something coming together. The bands are not really alike, but they share a sensibility. It didn't even have a name yet. I mean, it was kind of referred to as punk, but nobody really knew what that was except for an attitude. Because all the CBGB bands were so different from each other. Tom Verlaine once said that each band was like an individual idea. And I like that, but there was a certain consciousness happening there. And at that moment, I think the music needed a kind of return to basics. I had met Patti originally in the record store in 1971 when she came to congratulate me on a piece she read in Jazz and Pop magazine about doo-wop sung a cappella. I think if you're from around here, you probably went up to the Relic Rack in Hackensack, where they put out a lot of those records. And, we just got to be friendly. I performed at a poetry reading with her in February '71. Wasn't meant to be a band. She just knew
St. Mark's Theater?
Yeah, St. Mark's
Right.
Church. And she just asked me, knew I played a little guitar, and she wanted to shake up her poetry reading. So I went over to where she was living on 23rd Street in Robert Mapplethorpe's loft. And, she would kind of chant her poems, and I'd kind of watch how she breathed and, change the chord when it seemed like the right time. But we did it once. This was February '71. It wasn't meant to be a band. We didn't do another performance until November of 1973. And then we started playing about once a month at weird places, folk clubs where nobody really knew what we were doing, but they were curious. And, obviously it just kept on going. We started playing at CBGB's with our brother band Television, who we just loved their kind of spiraling guitar and spatial energy.
It strikes me that you had a real intimate connection with Television, that the two of you were very aligned stylistically.
We were both very
goals.
literary,
Right.
and we liked angular music and music that was, I don't know. I mean, we just felt a kinship with them.
Yeah.
And then we played in CB's for about, 6 weeks in a row, Thursday through Sunday with Television, and really gave us a chance to understand what we were trying to do, to take the improvisations of Land or Gloria or whatever we were doing, these kind of formless songs that we never really worked out parts for, but as we continued to play them night after night, they started forming organically into arrangements. And
Didn't they actually play some of the songs from your groundbreaking compilation album, Nuggets?
some of the groups did. I think they found a lot of inspiration in these kind of short, very primal songs.
Right.
Nuggets, of course, continues to live on, much to my astonishment.
So for those of you who don't know, Nuggets is this groundbreaking compilation album that Lenny produced in 1972. And we'll speak maybe later about the touring for this album. But it strikes me that this was the start of your fascination with scenes, because you took a bunch of unrelated bands that we now call garage rock. I think you popularized that term, and you created a virtual scene on vinyl. Does that resonate for you?
That's an interesting concept. I never thought of it like that. But yeah, I'd say, you bring a bunch of creative records and musicians together, and then all of a sudden they have a kind of concept. It's interesting. I mean, to me, on the first Nuggets, some of this stuff has nothing to do with what we now regard as garage rock. You know, you have the symphonic rock of Sagittarius doing My World Fell Down, and straight pop songs and songs done by music business professionals trying to leap on a bandwagon like the Strangeloves, and it was kind of all over the place. But you know, I didn't really have a sense of destination. Elektra asked me to do a record, kind of finding these cuts that were a little bit under the radar. It was kind of like an oldies album, except the time was only 4 years previously. It's like, oh yeah, let's do an album from the 2018, the pre-pandemic years, 2018, 2019. Yeah, I didn't have any real historical perspective. They just seemed records that kind of fit together. And again, it's that sensibility. I guess it's the same thing with CBGBs. You have a lot of different records, but once you get the distance from it, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 25 years, you start seeing how these bands truly fit together. It was very intuitive on my part, I have to say. All power to Elektra for Jack Holzman kind of giving me the keys to the kingdom, and then pretty much letting me do anything I wanted. He didn't ever said, oh, I don't think that should be there, or this should be there. He just let me have my way, and I was really full of myself in those years. You know, rock is revolution. And so, you amen.
So, and I think in the liner notes of Nuggets, you wrote about punk music before that was even a term. So it's a bit prophetic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, it's not like punk music turned out to be, but it was one of those rock writer terms that was starting to gain currency in the pages of Cream or Rolling Stone, which, you know, at that time, maybe around 70, 71, there was all this grandiosity. And I think some of it's great. You know, I like prog rock. Is George here? Because I like Nectar. I guess not. He's not here. Tell him I gave a name check to Nectar, please. But, you know, it was getting a time when rock was growing up and kind of feeling a little more grown up than perhaps some people should think of it as. You know, it's all about virtuosic solos and millions of parts.
Rock was art. Rock became art.
Yeah, and
don't you think you grew up with rock and roll? I mean, you.
Yeah, and I mean, who's more rock is art than Patti? I mean, you know,
right.
Even though our beds are very simplistic, but you know, it's just time to bring it back. It's like, especially this book, you can just see each scene reacts against the scene before that. That's really what's happening. You know, I mean, CBGB is less about punk rock than the London 77 scene, which was really about punk rock. In fact, you couldn't deviate from the punk template, mostly formed by the Ramones. And then, you know, things change. I didn't get to do the synth pop and new wave chapter. I couldn't have cited
Volume
City.
2?
No, that's one where Montclair's going to start it.
Okay.
I have to talk to Steve Strunsky about the musical history of this place. But
So would you say you've sort of grown up with Patti the way you've grown up with rock and roll?
yeah, I mean, you know, we've been together now for over 50 years. So I guess, you know, we've figured out. But, you know, I mean, the Patti Smith Group does a certain thing. It's the Patti thing. You know, we're not about to become a rockabilly band. Or, you know, I mean, we may allude to these musics, but pretty much we're idiosyncratic in what we do. But I think, you know, in terms of Nuggets, the term was in the air, and what it implied was getting back to 3-minute songs with hooks that were not fussy. You know, it would be more called power pop, I guess,
right.
if we're looking for that genre title. But I liked the bands on Nuggets because they were psychedelic. I mean, to me, one of the great things that happened for rock and roll is this expansion of consciousness. And that's what I tried to kind of pinpoint in Nuggets, was all of a sudden, in a music that was pretty much pop and still stayed pop, you could do a lot of weird things in it. And that, as a weird kid growing up in New Jersey, I was into that. So, you know, it was a very wonderful time. But
So you started in Brooklyn, and then you moved to New Brunswick,
Right,
correct?
New Brunswick, yes.
And isn't it true that with the ascendance of the Fab Four, you write about this in your Liverpool chapter, that's what inspired you to pick up a cherry red guitar? Can you talk about Liverpool and that influence on you?
Well, I was a kid growing up in New Jersey, kind of a mutant. I started playing guitar. I wanted to be a beatnik, but I wasn't old enough yet.
Darn, there's
I
time.
still want to be a beatnik. Good grief. Poetry.
That's pretty good.
But so I got my uncle gave me an acoustic guitar, and I'm learning my 3 chords. When you learn guitar chords, it's really important to take your tongue and stick it on the side of your mouth, like. Anyway, I wanted to be a lonely folk singer in the backyard, and just about the time that I got more than 4 chords together, the Beatles came on, Ed Sullivan, and for my generation, that was like, God, an amazing window into what you could do. I mean, it was a whole new band template. I wasn't going to be the Beach Boys, and I wanted to be in a doo-wop group, but my voice was somewhere between a high tenor and a low baritone, so I couldn't fit it in the harmony. But all of a sudden, there you had a template, and by the end of that year, 1964, I played my first show in a band at Rutgers, Chi Psi fraternity, bringing down the house with your music. What kind of music? The Vandals. I remember we wanted to get a song right off the radio to play at the fraternity parties. And so we chose the Kinks, You Really Got Me. Just came off the radio. I thought, whoa, that's so great. And then a few years back at a Tibet House benefit in Carnegie Hall, I was in the house band, and we backed up Ray Davies, and we did You Really Got Me. And I got to play the solo, and I thought, that's a nice circle. But yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I learned I believe we played Montclair State College with the band, we just, mostly North Jersey college mixers and fraternities. But that's, I didn't really get my degree in that in college, but I kind of learned my profession, which is very unusual.
And you furthered your graduate education during the Summer of Love, which you referenced earlier, when you ushered in the new year, 1967. And I think, isn't that when you sort of clarified that rock was your destiny and you were going to form a band at some future, another band?
Well,
what was that like for you, other than tripping?
I don't know. You just form. I had about 4 bands, and then the bands kind of ran out after I moved to New York. So I was a writer. I went to the other half of my brain. I wrote for Jazz and Pop and Rolling Stone and, record reviews. I look at them and I'm really pretty full of myself, some of them. What? You gotta be kidding.
I've read them and I think you were not.
I don't know. They kind of looked like I was cheerleading, but anyway, when I was writing 6, 8, 10 articles, a week, trying to make a living, of course. It was good to do, but I wasn't really thinking of playing. And then when the Patti thing started becoming a thing, because really we never set out to have a rock band.
Yeah.
It was some weird performance, cabaret, who knows what, trio. But by the time we did have the band, we sounded like ourselves, and that's a really beautiful thing, and hopefully we still do.
So you seem to have a beautiful friendship with her.
Yeah, she's my astral sister.
And you're born 3 days apart, I think?
3 days apart, yeah.
So
Same
how has that
year,
friendship evolved?
under the same sky, December 27th.
Yeah.
This year we'll be playing December 27th on my birthday in Chicago and on her birthday at Brooklyn Steel. So if you want to celebrate,
Cool.
Go to Chicago and then go to Brooklyn Steel.
We will all be there.
I'll be at both.
So you mentioned to me that you are working on a solo album, but you told me that you were doing it in the guise of Zen Len, which is a persona that you like to assume. No expectations. Can you share your progress with us? How's that going?
Slow as usual. I'm working with some guys from Railroad Earth, the jam band out in Really good guys. Tim is he actually got me in the studio and we did my Christmas song, Santa's Knee. Won't you come here and sit on old Santa's knee? Tell you what you're hoping to find under the tree. Anyway, we'll have it out for Christmas on green vinyl. Woohoo. But yeah, they're really good guys. I've been writing songs for a long time, and I would like to get them to, a place where they can be heard. I have no expectations of cracking the top 40 with them, but that's kind of freeing, and I just like playing songs. Would you like me to play a song for you, Cynthia?
How spontaneous. I would love that, Len.
Seems like we need a little song thing here.
Whoops.
Where's my fleet of roadies?
I think I'm all you have today, sorry.
But
And David Amlin, by the way, on sound, thank you. Is this the song you wrote about me?
Cynthia.
It's really
How about
good.
CC, Sizzling Cindy?
Yeah, that's
Pastel
better.
6, I know some. I just thought I'd break up our yakking with a little bit of music.
Well timed.
Okay. We're talking about books today. We're in a library. I have to say, I love books and I love libraries. I remember my friend Richard Rudin in the 3rd grade. We'd meet for lunch and we'd say, let's talk about books.
You're a mother's dream.
Huh? Anyway, I've written a couple of them, and they're really great, and I love libraries. When I worked on my crooner book, it was pre-internet. I spent a lot of time in the Lincoln Center Library of Performing Arts, just, going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and it was really fun. So I'd like to dedicate this to all those here in the Montclair Public Library today. Open up the pages, looking inside at the worlds of wonder that therein reside. Character and counterplot, chapter, verse, forget-me-not, a twice-told tale that we tell ourselves. Gather round the fire, getting warm and tight, as we read together on this World Book Night. One word and another till light. Reading together on World Book Night. Books about the future, books about the past, books to make you remember when you've read them last. Books for summer breezing by the beach or the sea. Books to make you marvel at life's mystery. There's picture books for coffee tables, paperbacks for planes, biographs and demographs and monographs and some for laughs, and books you give to others, and books that are so rare, and books you give to someone to show how much you care, and books that tell you who you are and who you want to be, books to make you remember all the ways that we're free. Gather round the fire, getting warm and tight, as we read together on this World Book Night. One word and another till light. Reading together on World Book Night. Books about the future. Sorry. Words have power, that's what they say. A library living on, long past today. And somewhere there's a reader, well, you never know who reads these words as these words read you. Gather round the fire, getting warm and tight, as we read together on this World Book Night. One word and another till light. Reading together on World Book Night. One word and another 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 and another. Reading together on World Book Night as we read together on World Book Night.
Thank you, Mr. Kaye. That was beautiful.
I should follow it with Book of Love. Can't judge a book by looking at the cover. There's a few more in there for my book medley when I come back.
So I think we have time for a few more questions and another song if you wish to share that with us. A couple questions, maybe some song, and then the audience participation. So you've written a lot and spoken a lot about the liberating power of music and the collective joy that you feel when you're on stage, its capacity to make change. Do you still feel that way in this day and age?
I feel that way all the time. I'm so blessed to be within music. I mean, I'm a lucky guy. And I wake up in the morning, got to think, what record am I going to put on when I make that cup of tea? You know, and then I maybe have a piece of writing, so I have to listen to music. Maybe I have to get my radio show on Sirius XM Monday and Tuesday, the Stevens Underground Garage, 8 p.m. Eastern to midnight. You know, or maybe, you know, just roll a big fatty and, you know, go to my record collection and I just do one of the, what they call it, gematria or something, when you open the Bible and you find something that, you know, means. So I just go there and I go, take out this record. Man, I've been listening to this since 1976. Boom. And it sounds great.
Describe your home studio, because I love envisioning you in it.
Yeah, you know,
He has a basement home studio, right?
Yeah, I got a lot of guitars and amps in the basement, and I got books here. You know, I just got a house full of crap. Let's be honest. All good. I call it the Museum of Me. And actually, that leads into another song.
How convenient.
I know this sounds scripted, but it's not.
It is.
Okay. I need a pick for this one. How many people out there are collectors? Don't be shy. How many people went on eBay last night drunk and bought something that you should have? Well, thank you. I know I paid more for it, but it's okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, I just went to a comic convention in Morristown. That's how sick I am.
Wow.
I didn't buy anything because I went to my comic piles yesterday, you know, in preparation. I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll get a Strange Adventures from 1958. But the prices have gone insane. So I resisted. But then, you know, like all of you, I have so much stuff. And let's be honest, what the heck are you going to do with it? Sooner or later, you're all going to find that you made it to the end of the line. It gets heavier every mountain you climb. It's the things you leave behind. It's been one of those years when people keep passing into the past, but you're still here. Gotta pick up the pieces of your life and theirs. Who gets what and why? We all cart around a whole lot of baggage that would better be left by the side of the road. Books and records, old clothes and photos, they carry a heavy load. Well, sooner or later we're all gonna find that we've made it to the end of the line. It gets heavier every mountain you climb. It's the things you leave behind. Unfinished business often bears witness to the best of intentions for cleaning it up. I'm gonna get to it one day or another before it gets too much. Now I like to forage in somebody's storage as much as the next guy, but you gotta expect that what you find and pass along will keep on keeping on and on. So sooner or later we're all gonna find that we've made it to the end of the line. It gets heavier every mountain you climb. It's the things you leave behind. Well, my friend Jim, he packed it all in to a 12x4 storage space. Boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes, all neatly piled and tucked in place. Now, I've got an attic and you've got a basement. Put it together. What do you see? A piece of you and a piece of me. Moving on to antiquity. So sooner or later we're all gonna find that we've made it to the end of the line. It's all there to remind and rewind. It's the things you leave behind, and it's the friends you leave behind. It's the songs you leave behind. It's the mess you leave behind. And it's the love you leave behind. It's the things you need behind.
Thank you, Lenny. So a few more questions, and then we're going to start hearing from the audience. So Nuggets, you've been touring all over.
Well, California.
I thought you were.
I guess that's all over
elsewhere.
California.
You were-
And we'll be in the City Winery
Right.
with this wacky nugget show.
It's going to be great.
I mean, I'm still talking
nights?
about 2 nights. I think it's the Friday and Saturday of the last weekend.
July.
We did a really nice one out in LA with members of Brian Wilson's backing band. And let me tell you, they learned all those songs amazingly. I never knew those things existed. They had 3 drummers, background vocals, the whole thing. Then we had one in San Francisco, which was a little funkier. Jello Biafra sang Louie Louie. Penelope Houston of the Avengers, Cyril of the Flamin' Groovies. It's been really fun. I mean,
Susanna Hoff from the Bangles.
Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles, yeah. I mean, great humans. and all
And
attributing a
REM?
wonderful moment in time. I have to say, I never thought I'd be still talking about what is essentially an oldies album 50 years later. If I knew I would have surely screwed it up. I mean, oh, it's not conceptual. Wait, I have to, I didn't really care. It's all my favorite records. And Elektra just went along with it, and it seems to have had a lifeline. I remember around 1980, I got a letter from Warner Brothers Records saying, this record is never going to recoup its advance, so we're not going to send you any more royalty statements. My advance was $750, so. But I think that's changed over the years. At least everybody who listened to that record has bought me a beer over the years. And so that's my royalties.
What about your box set? Don't you want to tell everybody about your exciting
Oh, it's a
box
box
set
set.
that's out for sale?
If you can find it, it was quite a nice, exciting items for Record Store Day in April. Rhino Records put together a 5 LP box set. The first 2 LPs are the first one, Volume 1 remastered. Volume 2, as I imagined it back in '73, but since the first one sold so ridiculously, they never happened. And so now I got to put it in there. Yes, I was able to get 96 Tears after 50 years of trying to license it. Amazing. And then there's a 5th disc of also Duggett's, of which I was able to put my own Duggett, Link Cromwell, doing Crazy Like a Fox.
Yeah.
And why don't I sing it for you while I'm here? I mean, what can I say? My Uncle Q is a songwriter. He actually was kind of a journeyman. He wrote with a lot of people, and his 2 biggest hits were the love theme from The Godfather, Speak Softly Love, and love theme from Romeo and Juliet, A Time for Us. Obviously, he specialized in love themes. But when Eve of Destruction was a hit, he called me and asked me to sing Eve of Destruction over the telephone because him and his songwriting partner at the time, Richie Adams, had written a folk protest song. And would I come into the studio and sing it? I was never in a recording studio before. It was like, hello. So I'm still singing it.
Yeah.
And actually, I have to say, the lyrics are kind of my personal philosophy. It's amazing when I think about it, but I have actually lived this song. They call me neurotic and say I'm psychotic because I let my hair grow long. Getting good in the back. They say that I'm crazy and they call me lazy 'cause I don't like to work all day long. Well, I'm crazy like a fox. Whoa, I'm crazy like a fox. 'Cause while they're working on the inside, I'm having fun on the outside. Whoa, yeah. I'm crazy like a fox. Whoa, yeah. Crazy like a fox. Little suspense. I watch them all slaving and working and saving, and usually I ain't got a dime. 'Cause while they get sicker, 'cause ulcers come quicker, I'm having me a real good time. Well, I'm crazy like a fox. Whoa, I'm crazy like a fox. 'Cause while they're working and slaving, I get by without slaving. Whoa, yeah. I'm crazy like a fox. Whoa, I'm crazy like a fox. Huh, yeah. like a fox. Whoa, baby, I'm crazy like a fox. Don't you know that I'm crazy, crazy? I'm so crazy. I'm singing in a library. How crazy is this? Oh my God. You say do not disturb? What do you mean do not disturb? I'm going to play really loud. And I'm still crazy.
One more question or no? Boss? Lenny, when you write volume 2, any particular scenes you'd include? Do you have an eye on any current
It really
scene?
took it out of me, this book, 6
Yeah.
years. I mean, actually there were 2 more in the original proposal. I wanted to do an alt-rock chapter of Athens and Minneapolis. You know, REM and Replacements and Soul Asylum. Thought that would be a good one. Maybe I'll do it for the 5th edition.
All right.
And I also wanted to do the Manchester acid rave scene in the 90s. I thought that was a good one, but you know, I wanted to get the book finished in my lifetime. So anyway, but you know, who knows? I mean, there's so many places. Wouldn't it be nice to do one on the computer? You know, like Kraftwerk World of Cologne, or my favorite, Kingston, Jamaica. That's a book in itself, however. You know, there's so many of them. You can't be everywhere at once, and I was really happy to be in these 10 scenes, and maybe I'll have another tour someday, so who knows.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ariel Zeitlin. I'm one of the librarians here at Montclair Public Library. And it's moments like this where I really feel like I have the best job in the world.
Amen.
Such a pleasure and such a great conversation. And the music.
Yeah, it all goes together.
Music.
It goes together, and this is the kind of library where we play rock and roll.
Well, I have the marshals are coming yet, and the pyrotechnics.
We're hoping.
I think we can put the fireworks up there, and
But also, it reminds me that why we love this town. Because
Yes,
these
amen.
people care about Lenny Kaye.
Absolutely. Yeah. I cannot tell you how many calls we had, and then people were so excited, and we ran out of tickets. We had to have people on standby. It's pretty awesome.
We'll do it again. We'll grill him again.
Let's do it again.
All right.
Okay, so in the meantime, we have a little bit of time for audience questions before we move into the cafe where Lenny will be signing and selling his books with our program partner and friend, Watchung Booksellers. So who wants to be first? Okay. I saw that hand.
How you doing? Thank you very much for doing this today. 2 quick questions.
Maybe tell us who you are.
Oh, my name is Michael from Weehawken.
Hello, Michael.
First question, your first apartment in New York City, and then when you were writing 6 to 8 articles a week, what were you getting paid for them?
Actually, 2 questions, but let's not be.
no, they're very, you know, because you got to pay for the apartments. I was living on my first apartment in New York. Well, I had 2 shots. I started out on West 86th at 2nd Street when I had a roommate, but I couldn't. When he moved out, I couldn't afford the $140 rent. So I moved back to New Brunswick for a while. Then I lived on Bethune Street, right by Abington Square, if you know where that is. That's where I started writing. That was $100 a month. I gave up the lease because I was going to Europe to you know, bum around and find myself or do whatever you do when you're suddenly free. And but then I'd written a review of the Stooges' first album for Fusion magazine. I think it might have been the first national review of that album. And then Danny Fields called me up and said, and he was kind of the guy who would sign the Stooges and a great New York City scenester. called me up out of nowhere, and he said, "Who are you?" I said, "I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out." And then he got me a gig at Cavalier magazine, which was one of those, let's just say, they're skin magazines with pretensions, literary pretensions. It was a good magazine. Stephen King wrote some of his early stories there. Vaughn Bodie did his erotica cartoons, and I was the music editor. And so I made $250 a month, which paid for my rent. And then I wrote for Rolling Stone. I was usually $25 a review, and then you'd write for this one, and it's $15. And then this one, you'd get tickets to the concert and go to a press party and eat chicken wings. It was, it was fun. But, I felt like a working journalist, just banging it out. I was taught to write fast. My friend Richard Robinson edited these magazines, Rock Scene and Hit Parader, and he had about 5 of them. And I was, first I'm sitting there going, I have to craft a perfect sentence. He says, "You have 30 seconds to craft the first paragraph." So you just get, you just bang it out. It's like, being a newspaper guy.
Thank you.
Hi, Lenny.
Hi.
Hi. Ben Horowitz. I grew up in Montclair. I live in Verona now. My question is, you mentioned that there's always good new music coming out, and I agree. What are some of the artists that you like that are now putting out new music now?
Well, things today is so idiosyncratic, how things come to you. I like a couple of these Scandinavian women singers. One's called Anne. That's her name. She has a great song called Annie. Streets Where You Belong. It's been my favorite album for the past 6 months. I also like a woman from Copenhagen called Kira Skov. She's wonderful, but I'm just mostly listening to radio all the time. I really like this song by Gayle. I think her name is Gayle. It's called ABCDEFU. And I heard that, I was like Shazamming it immediately. So, I'm just like open-eared. I'm mostly listening to whatever comes randomly my way. People give me records all the time. I'm having a really great Jamaican ska moment at this time, and pretty much when you come over to my house, you can choose between the sativa or the indica, and we'll just get down to,
What day?
But that's, mostly, and I like the radio, to be honest. I like the serendipity. Let's talk about FMU. How great a station is that? I've never, and my favorite is Michelle with 1 L on Tuesday afternoons. If you see her, just tell her I have a radio crush on her. Okay?
Hi, Lenny. I want to thank you for coming today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I'm Mark from Bloomfield,
Hey.
and I got this album, and I don't know if you remember the review you did on this.
I did. It's my liner notes, yes.
That's right, exactly. Can you tell us a little bit about that show? Well, liner notes, but for everybody else.
Well,
And seeing a
I
young
wasn't at the
Timmy
show, to be perfectly
You weren't
honest.
there.
But I had when I worked at Village Oldies, they obviously sold tickets to the show. I didn't start at Village Oldies till I think 1970 or something like that. But they had a bunch. They must have sold tickets from the 1968 show, and so I knew that it existed. And of course, I believe the record is great, even though Jimmy Page flipped out when he heard it because they put all these bullfight roars on it. But the playing on it is spectacular, and I just pretended I was there.
You did a great job.
Poetic license.
Thank you. Anyone else? Don't be shy. This is your chance to ask Lenny.
That's right.
Hi, Lenny. I'm Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
My question is, I recently watched that series 1971, the year that changed the world, or the year music changed the world. Are you familiar with that? I just wondered, had you seen it?
71, I don't know. I'd say 72 myself.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but anytime what's really great about music is that you can go into any year and find the great stuff. I mean, it's such an continuous thing. Do you have a specific question about 1971 or just about? You must.
I was surprised, I guess. I think you're right. I think you could do a deep dive into any year and discover things, like appreciate things. It's a good, I think it's a well-done series, and I know you would probably appreciate it, because they covered not just the popular music, but some of the lesser-known music. But I never thought about 71 as being a seminal year. And then when I watched this, I came away with, a slightly different impression.
I mean, it was definitely a year of transit. It's the first beginning of the 70s, and the 70s are so different in character than the 60s. I mean, to be honest, in 1967, when I was driving across country, I truly believed that love would change the world. I just thought, oh yeah, I still do, actually. I'm not
When is
sure
it going
how
to change,
practical
Lenny?
that is.
Right.
But,
When is it going to change?
but 71 was, things were starting to roll toward what the 70s would be. I mean, 71 was, I believe, the first time I saw the New York Dolls. I remember I was working at Village Oldies. For the guy who wants to know how much you get paid, for me, it was $10 a day and all I could filch. But, I remember, I mean, at that time, there was no, and when I say no, I mean zero rock bands in New York. There was no places to play. After the kind of East Village scene with Cat Mother and the news, all-night newsboys and the group Image, and the Velvets had left. I mean, actually, 1971, I believe, was when the Velvets had their stand at Max's Kansas City. It's all coming back to me. But, things are, but you could definitely tell that something was in the air. I mean, there was no, national groups always came through New York City. So it was hard to get a local scene going. I remember the first time I saw the New York Dolls poster they were playing at the Mercer Street Arts Center. And I said, wow, it's a great name. There's a band that you can go see. And I went there pretty early on and just loved their little coterie of people. It started out as 25 renegades, and soon in 6 months there was 100 people, and the Dolls were great, and it was a return to a rock and roll spirit that I think, in a certain way was a precursor of punk. I think the New York Dolls are not given enough credit for really kick-starting what New York became in the 70s. And so, yeah, I had a great 1971.
Thank you.
In fact, I'll set the time machine dial. Whoa, dude, those pants are so bell-bottom.
Well, let's all take a look at your socks.
Oh, yeah, well,
Very
I'm
evocative.
just flying the flag, okay? I got to say, anytime I see a pot store, I'll go in and buy it, because I remember 55 years ago when, you really were scared. I remember going to Dunkin' Donuts when I lived in New Brunswick, and we're driving there, and we're like, "Ugh." All of a sudden, a cop car in back of us starts flashing his lights. I'm thinking, oh, that's it, we're done. We're going to prison for 20 years. And then, it pulls around, and, So I always go in and buy something.
Well, there's one
as I
right on
can.
Bloomfield Avenue, so please feel free. But you also lived in Manhattan in the 1970s. There was the band shell.
Oh, yeah, no, I
Behind
mean,
the
there's
banjo.
like, I've never actually I've never been down to Seeds and Stems again.
I'm so profoundly relieved.
And now I got to say, I hate to get on this tangent, but I have a bud bar now.
Ooh.
Sativa, hybrid, indica.
So you're inviting
like you.
everybody here because
I
you're...
think the Northern
I see.
Lights are big and bright. They really got us wasted. Okay, sorry, it's just pot humor.
Hey, Lenny,
Yeah,
thank you for coming to Montclair. My name is Norman.
hey, Norman.
And my question, you mentioned television. And I've always felt like Patti Smith Band and television in particular were particularly simpatico. And especially in the vocal styles, at least to my ears. And I was wondering if you ever felt that or you experienced that in any way.
I never thought about that, actually, because in my mind, we're very different bands, I guess. The vocal style thing is pretty interesting. Tom Verlaine did have a good yelp, and so does Patti. but we were very different. I just felt like when we went down there on that famous Easter Sunday of 1974, Patti and I were up at a screening of Ladies and Gentlemen, the Rolling Stones up at the Ziegfeld Theater. And after that, we had been individually accosted by members of television. Patti knew Richard Hell, and I knew Richard Lloyd from Max's. I didn't know his name, but he had a band called Crossfire, so I called him Crossfire. I have no idea. Anyway, we went down there and took a cab, a rare, we didn't take the subway. Wow, we splurged. And we got to CBGB and walked through there and right in to see television. And this was a Sunday night, and they had just started playing there, and man, they were just so weird. I mean, the guitars were somewhat in tune, but then, my guitar was never in tune, and I was so happy when they invented tuners, oh my God. But, we just felt like, they had a lot of poetic background. They liked music that was very, you push it to the edge and you kind of clawed it, and then you could bring it down to something melodic, and we felt a real kinship with them. And, still do. I mean, to me, losing Tom Verlaine was one of the tragedies of life because there was no other guitar player like him. He was an amazing genius. And,
But you're still in touch with Richard, right?
Huh? Oh yeah, I'm still friends with Richard Lloyd. At CBGB's, if you ever see me and Richard at a place together and we're just walking in, we'll do this, which meant I'll meet you in the Hotel Palace lobby next door so we can smoke a joint. Tea. Get it? Tea. All right. Anyway, we have a great brotherhood, and I love Richard. We played together, I think, last November or something. That was really fun to see him. He's a good one. I think he'll be at the City Winery Nugget Show, by the way.
Great. And he was in Montclair recently.
All right, that's, he just, he keeps on keeping on. And, Lord love him.
It's true.
Lord love him.
Oh, hi. I'm glad you're here. I had heard, did you ever meet or have any experiences with David Bowie? I heard that he introduced Bruce Springsteen back at Max's Kansas City in the 70s when Bruce was an unknown.
I can't say I know that. I did see Bruce a couple times. If you want, since we're in Jersey, I may as well tell my Bruce story.
Phew.
First time I saw Bruce Springsteen was in the summer of 1969. I went down to see a buddy of mine who lived in Newark at the time, Mark Tauber, who had a band called Trax, and he was playing at Monmouth College on the Jersey Shore for some, I don't know, on the steps of the Grand Building there or something. And so I went there, and I saw Mark, and he was great, of course. And then this group comes on, they're called Child. And the lead singer is, this kind of scruffy-looking guy playing a black Les Paul. And they do a 10-minute version of Season of the Witch with him just wailing on guitar. And I thought, whoa, this group is great. Who's this guy? Fantastic. And then Mark and I would drive around there. We were looking for places to jam, so we went to the surfboard factory where Bruce was living at the time in a room, maybe half the size of this stage. And he says, go down to the Fast Lane or one of those joints, and we went there. And then I saw him at Max's kind of auditioning when he's getting his solo thing together, and he reminded me more of Van Morrison than this rocker guy. And I thought, I don't know, well, maybe he's trying to, get somewhere, I don't know. And then I saw one of the greatest concerts of my life at Max's, also with Bruce. He was headlining, and he was opened up by Bob Marley and the Wailers. So, what can I say? But yeah, I mean, I love Bruce. I don't know anything about the David Bowie thing. I never even think of them in the same synapse of brain. But David was hanging out there. Max's was kind of a great little scene. And as it moved from being an art Andy Warhol kind of scene to a music scene, I felt kind of privileged to be part of the back room. In fact, I have a print of the back room in my dining room. And I had some really good times there. I was still, kind of wet behind the ears, I guess you'd call it. But it was a wonderful place to hang out, and I'm a guy who likes to hang out. So.
Thank you. Okay, so one more.
We have someone, we'll get to you. We'll get to you. We can have one.
It's funny with that, what you were just having the prior discussion, because you've been talking about nuggets and some rare things. So I was wondering what it's like being associated with, a song like Because the Night, which you hear 5 times a day on every crappy, rock station that has, in the sense that
Crappy rock station? Are you kidding me?
Where the
Playing
repertoire,
Because the Night?
where they only know 2 songs by the Rolling Stones type of thing, but Because the Night is going to be up there. So what is that like, being associated with a song that's like that?
That's Jordan from Montclair.
It's fucking awesome. Fuck. It's not easy to write a hit. Everybody thinks, oh, yeah. No, Patti Smith Group, I have to say, we always tried, but, we're just a little strange. And I remember we're working on Easter, and Jimmy Iovine is the producer, and he's also worked with Bruce. And I remember one night we're driving home about 6 o'clock in the morning after a session. He says, wouldn't it be great if we could get Bruce and Patti to do something? I said, well, it would be, two great minds. And, Jimmy really, kind of pushed at it. And Bruce was piling up songs like crazy for Darkness at the Edge of Town. And he wanted a direction for the record, and he didn't want, there's a great documentary I've seen on the making of that record. And I know Little Steven was very protective of Because the Night and was kind of shocked when Jimmy kind of slid it over to Patti. I wish I had the tapes. Bruce wrote us a couple songs that he thought Patti might like that were in her style. And, I don't even remember what they were or anything. It was just on a cassette, and we both thought, well, this is what we're doing, And then Jimmy got the tape of Because the Night, and it had a lot different feel than what turned out to be our version. It was kind of Latin, as I remembered it, a little, Because the Night, like merengue or something. Anyway, I'm talking on the phone with Patti, and she says, well, let's push play on this and let's see what it sounds like. And of course, as that chorus came in, you could not deny it. And it was a great thing to have a true hit single. A lot of our songs are audience favorites. And, when we play Dancing Barefoot or Piss in the River or Southern Cross or any of the stuff that, which is great. I'm happy about that. Love Gloria and Land and all that. But it's so nice when people have a song to sing along to. And any rock station that plays it, and I don't know what station you're listening to, so I don't hear it that many times. And if I did, I'd take that volume and crank it, because it's a great song. Patti sings the hell out of it, and we've been playing it now for, I can't even, over 40 years. And, when those opening chords come in, we're home. Simple as that. I love, there's not one song that I think, I've played this too much, I love them all, and it's a great honor, and you always find a new way to negotiate it and make it your own and make it that night song. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Robin?
You have a question down here in the front.
Town Councilwoman Robin Schlager.
Town Council, strike, strike, strike.
So, Lenny, you mentioned that song you sang was great about stuff in your house and stuff in your attic.
I'm not cleaning it. No, I don't want your stuff. Don't leave it to me.
So I've been starting to clean out also in my attic, and I have to show you what I found, what I've had for many. I've had this 47 years, and I bought this at Bleecker Bob's for $7.
Just show it to everybody.
Turn it around.
And
So just for the recording, it says all the way with Lenny Kaye.
Oh, boy.
All I can say is many are called, but few are chosen. No, only kidding. Actually, I remember when that started, that was taken off the wall at CBGB's bathroom, that phrase. It's okay.
Okay.
18 Rolling Rocks into the night, what are you going to do?
Time for
Okay.
book signing?
So I just want to, this is the part where I remind you that if you want books like this to be out in the world and you want to support artists who are eloquent and sensitive and need to eat, then you buy their books and you buy their albums, and this is a really great chance to do that. And Lenny will be signing in there, and they're both paperbacks and hardcovers for those of you who are truly hardcore fans.
Amen.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, darling.
Thank you.